As President Trump stated yesterday, he is still committed to placing tariffs on Canada starting as early as tomorrow, possibly.
One moment, a major automaker was struggling to keep up with the competition, and the next, it was in complete free fall, and no one saw it coming. The latest tariffs have done more than shake up trade negotiations. They have pushed a once dominant car company to the edge of collapse. In this video, we're diving into the shocking impact of Trump's new tariffs, and trust me, some of the details will leave you speechless. Why this company? Why now? And most importantly, what does this mean for you? From job losses in the thousands to factories shutting down overnight, this company is going through some tough times, but the worst part is that this isn't just about one automaker, it is just the start of it. Stick with me to the end, because what's happening now could change the entire auto industry and affect your next car purchase. The tariff bombshell. Most people never expected Trump's new tariffs to hit like a bomb, until they did. Overnight, an automaker that had been struggling to maintain its footing in the market faced an unexpected financial catastrophe. The new tariffs, targeting foreign-made automobiles and auto parts, sent shockwaves through the industry. While tariffs are nothing new in the world of international trade, the scope and timing of these new measures caught many by surprise. The reasoning behind the tariffs was clear: to protect American manufacturing and jobs. By imposing higher import duties on foreign vehicles, the administration hoped to encourage more domestic production. However, the immediate effect was something no one anticipated: massive price hikes, disrupted supply chains, and a company that suddenly found itself in free fall. While the official goal was to boost American automakers, some of the largest companies in the industry had already integrated foreign-made parts into their supply chains. For a company heavily dependent on imported components or relying on foreign production plants, this policy delivered an instant financial blow. Share prices plummeted, production lines stalled, and the automaker in question had no choice but to make drastic decisions. The target in the crosshairs. Imagine a car company so vital that one tariff could force it to the brink of collapse. That is exactly what happened. This automaker, once a dominant force in the industry, had been struggling for years due to increased competition, mismanagement, and a shifting global landscape. While its brand remained recognizable, its market position had weakened. The new tariffs pushed it past the breaking point, and the company's vulnerabilities had been hiding in plain sight. Its production relied heavily on overseas factories, and its supply chain was deeply entwined with foreign manufacturers. With sudden tariff increases, its entire cost structure was thrown into chaos. Vehicles that were already struggling to compete against rivals suddenly became significantly more expensive. To make matters worse, the company had limited domestic production capacity to offset the damage. Expanding manufacturing in the United States would take years and billions in investment, something it could not afford. The market reaction was immediate. Investors pulled out, dealerships hesitated to order new stock, and the company's leadership found themselves in a desperate scramble for solutions. Politics meets the assembly line. What happens when political power and manufacturing collide? The result might be more dramatic than anyone expected. The tariffs were a clear statement of economic policy. America first, domestic production over imports, and trade policies aimed at reducing dependency on foreign-made goods. But in practice, things are rarely that simple. For decades, the auto industry has functioned as a globally integrated machine. American companies manufacture parts abroad, foreign companies build factories in the United States, and supply chains stretch across continents. Disrupting this intricate balance has consequences that go far beyond a single company. The affected automaker had spent years optimizing costs through international partnerships. When the tariffs hit, it was unable to pivot quickly enough. Meanwhile, American competitors who had already built factories in the country gained a sudden advantage. The tariffs effectively reshuffled the industry's hierarchy overnight, punishing those unprepared while rewarding those who had already anticipated the shift. Critics of the policy pointed out that, while the move may have been designed to bolster domestic manufacturing, the short-term damage was undeniable. Thousands of jobs were at risk, dealership networks faced uncertainty, and the overall market faced increased volatility. Even within the administration, some officials expressed concern that the tariffs could backfire, harming American consumers by driving up prices. Ripple effects across the economy, and here's why these tariffs send shockwaves far beyond one company's boardroom. When a major automaker struggles, the effect effects ripple through the entire economy. Suppliers, dealership employees, transport networks, and even advertising agencies tied to the brand face financial uncertainty. The tariffs did not just affect one company, they disrupted an entire ecosystem. The immediate impact was price inflation. With higher production costs, vehicle prices surged, making new cars less accessible to consumers. Buyers who had planned to purchase a vehicle found themselves reconsidering their options, leading to a slowdown in sales. Meanwhile, dealership inventories ballooned as unsold cars sat on lots, further pressuring the automaker. But the biggest twist was yet to come. The tariffs did not just impact this one automaker, they also intensified the growing trade war between the United States and its international partners. Foreign governments retaliated with tariffs of their own, targeting American industries ranging from agriculture to technology. The global trade landscape shifted overnight, and companies across multiple industries scrambled to adapt. The consequences were impossible to ignore. Investors became wary of automotive stocks, fearing prolonged instability. Consumers hesitated to commit to big-ticket purchases, weakening demand. And all the while, the company at the center of the storm was forced to make drastic moves to survive. Layoffs, factory closures, and restructuring plans became inevitable, proving that these tariffs were not just a policy change, they were a seismic event in the auto industry. The situation left many wondering, was this the intended outcome or an unforeseen consequence of an aggressive trade strategy? More importantly, would the company be able to withstand the storm, or was this the beginning of the end for a once powerful automaker? A giant in trouble. Once hailed as a beacon of innovation, this company is now gasping for air. It was once an industry leader, a name that inspired confidence, a symbol of resilience in the ever-changing world of automotive manufacturing. But today, it is a shadow of its former self. Sales have plummeted, factories are closing, and investors are running for the exits. For decades, this company stood among the titans of the automotive industry. It introduced groundbreaking models, pioneered new technologies, and expanded its reach across the globe. Yet despite its long history of success, its financial reports now tell a much darker story. Profit margins have thinned to a razor's edge, and its market share has been chipped away by fierce competition from both old rivals and emerging players. The warning signs have been there for years. Year after year, production numbers slipped. In the past, such dips could be explained away. Market fluctuations, supply chain disruptions, temporary setbacks. But this time, the decline is not just a blip, it is a sustained downward spiral that industry insiders have been predicting for years. What went wrong? Some point to the company's inability to keep up with the rapid changes in consumer demand. As competitors aggressively pivoted toward electric vehicles, hybrid technologies, and autonomous driving, this company hesitated. It stuck with outdated strategies, banking on brand loyalty and legacy models to carry it forward. But brand loyalty is not enough when customers are looking for the next big thing, and legacy models mean little when innovation drives the industry forward. Then came the tariffs. Already weakened by years of poor decision-making, the company now faced a direct hit from new trade policies that drastically increased the cost of doing business. The final blow came when the numbers no longer added up, forcing executives to admit what had once been unthinkable. The company's survival was no longer guaranteed. The moment of realization was swift and brutal. Investors began pulling out, sending the stock price into free fall. Production facilities, once bustling with activity, were forced to scale back, laying off thousands of workers in an effort to cut costs. The company, once considered too big to fail, now found itself at the brink. Leadership in crisis. Inside these boardrooms, chaos reigned long before the tariffs hit. The problems were not just about trade wars and economic downturns, they were deeply rooted in the company's leadership. Decisions made behind closed doors shaped the fate of this once mighty automaker, and many of those decisions turned out to be disastrous. The cracks in leadership had been forming for years. At first they were small, disagreements over strategy, clashes between executives, concerns about the future direction of the company. But as the market evolved and competition intensified, those cracks widened into chasms. Instead of adapting to new industry trends, leadership was stuck in a tug of war between outdated business models and the need for change. Some executives pushed for aggressive expansion into electric vehicles, arguing that it was the future of the industry. Others resisted, clinging to traditional manufacturing methods and internal combustion engines, fearing the risks of shifting too quickly. This internal division led to years of hesitation, years that competitors spent refining their electric vehicle strategies and gaining market dominance. Then came the scandals. Corruption, mismanagement, and financial misconduct plagued the company's highest levels of leadership. Executives were caught in allegations of fraud, misreported earnings, and unethical business practices. Investors, once confident in the leadership team, began losing faith. A particularly shocking scandal emerged when it was revealed that top executives had been inflating sales figures to paint a rosier picture of the company's financial health. Reports showed that vehicles were being sold at deep discounts, or even registered under fake names just to boost short-term sales numbers. This house of cards could only stand for so long. When the truth came out, trust in the company eroded even further. As executives scrambled to contain the fallout, it became clear that there was no unified vision for recovery. One by one, key leaders resigned or were forced out. The revolving door of leadership only added to the uncertainty, leaving employees and investors alike wondering who, if anyone, was truly in charge. The human toll. Picture thousands of dedicated workers suddenly left without a future. This is no ordinary downsizing. When the company announced massive layoffs and production shutdowns, the effects rippled far beyond the walls of its factories. Entire communities were impacted. For decades, these factories had been the lifeblood of small towns and major cities alike, providing stable jobs and fueling local economies. Workers who had spent their entire careers with the company suddenly found themselves without income, without security, and without a clear path forward. At one facility, workers showed up for what they thought would be a normal shift, only to be met with locked doors and a notice that production had been halted indefinitely. Some had worked there for decades, watching as their fathers and grandfathers built the company's reputation from the ground up. Now they were told that their years of dedication meant nothing in the face of financial collapse. For those who remained, conditions worsened. The company's desperation to cut costs meant that shifts were reduced, benefits were slashed, and workloads increased. Labor disputes erupted as workers fought to keep what little they had left. In some cases, protests broke out, with employees demanding answers from a leadership team that had seemingly abandoned them. Among the chaos, personal stories emerged. Stories of workers who had just bought homes, expecting to retire with the company, only to find themselves facing foreclosure. Others struggled to provide for their families, forced to take on multiple jobs just to stay afloat. But not all stories were ones of loss. In some cases, former employees banded together to create new opportunities, launching independent repair shops, starting small businesses, or transitioning into entirely new industries. Some found support from their communities, proving that even in the face of disaster, resilience could still shine through. A global domino effect. When one titan stumbles, the whole industry feels the tremors. This company's downfall is not just an isolated incident, it is sending shockwaves throughout the entire automotive world. Competitors are watching closely, with some capitalizing on the company's misfortunes. Other automakers, particularly those that had already strengthened their electric vehicle strategies, are stepping in to fill the void left behind. Market share that once belonged to this struggling giant is now up for grabs, and rival companies are moving quickly to claim it. Internationally, the impact is just as significant. The company's struggles have disrupted supply chains, affecting parts manufacturers, dealerships, and suppliers who relied on its production. Some businesses that had long partnerships with the automaker are now scrambling to find new clients or risk shutting down themselves. Governments are also taking notice. With thousands of jobs on the line and economic uncertainty looming, policymakers are under pressure to intervene. Some are considering bailouts, while others see this as a sign that more aggressive trade policies are needed to protect domestic industries. But the most pressing question remains: what happens next? Some analysts predict that this crisis will lead to a major restructuring of the entire automotive industry. Mergers, acquisitions, and alliances may reshape the market as companies fight to survive in an increasingly competitive and rapidly evolving landscape. For this struggling automaker, the path forward is uncertain. Can it recover from this crisis, or is it doomed to become another cautionary tale in the history of the automotive industry? Whatever the outcome, one thing is clear: the era of unchecked dominance is over, and the industry is changing faster than ever before. Tariffs through the ages. Tariffs have been rewriting the rules of commerce for centuries. Today, they are doing it again. Throughout history, governments have wielded tariffs as powerful economic tools, shaping the trajectory of industries, altering trade relationships, and even influencing political landscapes. From the early mercantile policies of European empires to modern-day trade wars, tariffs have been at the center of economic strategy. Nations have used them to protect domestic industries, retaliate against foreign competition, and, at times, assert geopolitical influence. One of the earliest instances of tariffs being used as a means of economic warfare dates back to the 17th century when European colonial powers imposed heavy duties on imported goods to strengthen domestic industries. British policies, for example, restricted American colonies from trading freely, fueling economic grievances that contributed to the American Revolution. Fast forward to the 19th century, and tariffs played a decisive role in the industrial growth of the United States. The Tariff of Abominations, passed during the early decades of the century, was designed to protect northern industries but ended up sparking deep divisions between regions. Southern states, reliant on agricultural exports, suffered from retaliatory measures, demonstrating how tariffs, while intended to strengthen economies, often come with unintended consequences. In more recent history, tariffs have been a recurring element in the automotive industry. The North American automotive sector has long been subject to trade restrictions aimed at balancing economic interests. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, introduced in the early 20th century, sought to protect American industries but instead contributed to global economic turmoil. Retaliatory tariffs imposed by trading partners deepened the economic downturn, illustrating how aggressive trade policies can sometimes backfire. A striking parallel to today's situation can be found in the trade tensions of the late 20th century between the United States and Japan. As Japanese automakers gained a competitive edge, American manufacturers pressured the government to impose restrictions. The result was voluntary export restraints, an alternative to traditional tariffs, which forced Japanese companies to rethink their strategies, ultimately leading to a stronger global presence. This historical backdrop serves as a reminder that tariffs are never just numbers on a trade balance sheet. They carry weighty consequences, affecting industries, economies, and everyday consumers. Today's automotive industry stands on the precipice of another seismic shift, one that echoes the lessons of the past while setting the stage for new global power struggles. The competition between American and Japanese automakers is one of the most defining battles in modern industrial history. For decades, these two nations have competed fiercely in the global automotive market, each bringing its strengths to the table. The United States, with its vast manufacturing infrastructure, long dominated the industry, while Japan, known for its meticulous engineering and production efficiency, rose to prominence through innovation and strategy. During the post-war period, American automakers reigned supreme, churning out millions of vehicles and setting the standard for mass production. However, as the economic landscape shifted in the latter half of the 20th century, Japanese automakers began to carve out a significant share of the global market. Brands such as Toyota, Honda, and Nissan introduced vehicles that were not only affordable but also reliable and fuel efficient, qualities that resonated with consumers, particularly during periods of economic uncertainty. One pivotal moment in this rivalry came when Japanese automakers were accused of flooding the American market with lower-cost vehicles, undercutting domestic manufacturers. In response, the United States government imposed restrictions on Japanese imports, leading to voluntary export restraints. This policy inadvertently pushed Japanese companies to establish manufacturing plants in North America, a move that not only allowed them to circumvent restrictions but also solidified their presence in the region. This rivalry has defined industry standards and technological advancements. The introduction of lean manufacturing, pioneered by Japanese companies, revolutionized automotive production and forced American automakers to adapt. The rivalry also extended beyond vehicles themselves, influencing global supply chains, research and development, and consumer expectations. A particularly surprising moment in this battle came when Japanese automakers, once perceived as outsiders in the American market, surpassed domestic manufacturers in sales and reliability rankings. What began as an effort to limit their influence ultimately resulted in an even stronger presence. Today, the echoes of this historic rivalry continue as automakers navigate new challenges, from electrification to shifting trade policies. The lessons from this battle remain relevant as other nations, particularly China, emerge as formidable players in the industry. China's rising challenge. The automotive industry is undergoing a seismic transformation, and China is at the forefront of this change. Once dismissed as a market for cheap, low-quality vehicles, China has rapidly ascended to become a dominant force in global auto manufacturing. With a combination of government support, aggressive investment in electric vehicle technology, and an ability to scale production at an unprecedented rate, Chinese automakers are challenging the status quo. Chinese brands such as BYD, NIO, and XPeng are not only producing vehicles at competitive prices, but also setting new benchmarks for battery technology and smart vehicle integration. Unlike previous industry disruptors, China's rise is not just about cost efficiency, it is about redefining what modern vehicles can be. One of the most staggering statistics in this shift is China's dominance in electric vehicle production. The country now accounts for more than half of the world's electric vehicle sales, a figure that continues to climb. While Western automakers have struggled with supply chain disruptions and slow transitions to electrification, Chinese manufacturers have surged ahead, exporting vehicles to markets once dominated by American, European, and Japanese brands. The aggressive expansion strategy of Chinese automakers extends beyond their domestic market. By leveraging lower production costs and government-backed incentives, they have been able to flood global markets with competitively priced models. Countries in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and even parts of Europe are seeing an influx of Chinese vehicles, forcing legacy manufacturers to reassess their strategies. This rapid ascent presents both opportunities and challenges. On one hand, consumers benefit from increased competition and innovation. On the other, traditional automakers face mounting pressure to keep pace with China's relentless drive for market expansion. The question remains, can established players adapt quickly enough, or will they be overtaken by the new era of Chinese dominance? From policy to your driveway. You might think politics is a far-off game, but here is how these decisions end up on your driveway. Trade policies and tariffs are not abstract economic concepts. They shape the vehicles people buy, the prices they pay, and the choices available to them. With each new tariff or regulatory change, the cost of manufacturing and importing vehicles fluctuates, impacting everything from dealership inventories to financing options. A stark example of this dynamic is the increasing cost of foreign-made vehicles following tariff hikes. When tariffs are imposed on specific auto parts or fully assembled vehicles, manufacturers either pass the cost onto consumers or shift production strategies to avoid penalties. The result? Higher sticker prices, limited model availability, and, in some cases, manufacturers withdrawing from certain markets altogether. A surprising trend emerging from recent policy shifts is the changing preferences of consumers. As trade tensions continue to disrupt supply chains, more consumers are considering alternative brands, opting for electric vehicles, or delaying purchases altogether in anticipation of better deals. This shift is reshaping market dynamics in ways few anticipated. While governments negotiate trade agreements and impose tariffs, it is the everyday consumer who ultimately feels the effects. Whether it is through higher monthly payments, reduced model options, or unexpected supply shortages, the impact of trade policies extends far beyond corporate boardrooms. Understanding these connections is crucial, as the decisions made today will determine the landscape of the automotive industry for years to come. Can a fallen giant rise again? When everything seems lost, sometimes the most unlikely comeback can spark a revolution. History is filled with stories of companies on the brink of collapse, only to find a way back through reinvention and resilience. But is that possible for an automaker facing financial turmoil, production cuts, and declining consumer trust? Survival requires more than just cost-cutting. The companies that rise from the ashes do so by redefining themselves. Take a look at what Ford did in the early 21st century when it faced an existential crisis. Instead of waiting for market forces to crush it, the company streamlined operations, secured funding without government bailouts, and doubled down on models that connected with consumers. The result? A stunning turnaround that repositioned it as a dominant force in the industry. A similar approach could work now. First, strategic partnerships and mergers may be essential. The idea of automakers combining forces is not new, but when done right, it creates economies of scale, accelerates innovation, and provides a financial cushion against volatile markets. Sharing research and development on electric vehicles and autonomous technology could be the lifeline that struggling manufacturers need to stay relevant. Second, a renewed focus on electrification and alternative fuel technology is critical. Consumers and governments worldwide are pushing for cleaner transportation, and automakers that fail to prioritize innovation in this area risk becoming obsolete. Companies that once dominated the internal combustion engine era must fully embrace the future of electric mobility, not just with compliance models, but with vehicles that excite and inspire buyers. Lastly, rebuilding consumer trust is vital. A company's reputation can recover if it acknowledges past missteps and commits to higher quality, better service, and a more customer-centric approach. The key is execution, delivering on promises, and ensuring that every vehicle that rolls off the production line is built to exceed expectations. If history has taught us anything, it is that even giants can rise again. The real question is whether this automaker has the vision, leadership, and adaptability to make it happen. What do you think? Let's know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.